So to unpack what effective public engagement looks like under each of the three framings, I'll start with communication. We believe that effective communication on climate change involves building a deeper understanding of the public's ideological, cultural, political values and the social, gender, and racial identities that define their lived realities. So it's really important to use language, framing, narratives that take into account these values and belief systems when engaging the public if we want the engagement to generate a broader mandate for action. There is also a need to encourage greater diversity with respect to class, race, and gender in the messengers who facilitate those conversations on climate change, if the messages are to really resonate with different groups. The second piece is on collaboration, and we see effective collaboration on climate change in a couple of different ways. The first being the ability of the public to deliberate and feed into formal decision-making processes on climate change, and this can take the form of citizen juries or citizen assemblies. And for this, it's really important to create legitimate spaces for deliberation between citizens, where the engagement is seen as legitimate because the processes, the timelines, the outcomes are transparent, they're inclusive, they're accountable, and typically the entire process is convened and led by messengers that are trusted by the group. The second is the ability of the public to have the agency to lead their own engagement and to drive community action. So it's really important to question what conditions enable successful community-led, place-based initiatives, and also to identify how those conditions can be supported in different contexts so that citizen-led public engagement and action can really thrive. And finally, we also believe that any collaboration exercise should foreground justice and inclusion. So it's important to keep asking ourselves questions around where's the engagement taking place, who is taking part in them, who is not, and why. Also, who is being best served by the outcomes, and how do we make the entire process more equitable? So to move finally to intervention, we believe it's important to make distinctions between where an intervention needs to target individual behavior, and this is looking at incentivizing people to make more sustainable choices, versus where it needs to target social practice, which is really looking at the sociocultural norms and the capacity barriers that stop people from making those sustainable choices in the first place. And it's really important, we believe, to engage the public with a very clear sort of understanding of how specific groups that are being engaged with relate to the issues that are being discussed. Our research also shows that when you intervene is as important as how you intervene. So engaging the public at critical life moments when they have the capacity and the inclination for change, and this could be when they have a child, when they move homes, when they retire, that can be very effective. So I'll move on to summarizing the key takeaways from this. On communication, it's important. The important takeaway is that careful, targeted framing of climate change around public values and having diverse representative messengers is key to public acceptance and legitimacy. The second is that in collaboration should be linked to formal decision-making processes, and it should be sustained, it should be deliberative, and it should be inclusive in order to be impactful. The third is that the public themselves should have the agency to shape their spaces for engagement, collaboration, and also to drive collective action on climate change. And finally, it's really important to acknowledge that several structural barriers exist to achieving behavior change for net zero. And this requires multi-level, systems-level interventions across sectors and a very linked up model of public engagement.